Luminato was like an injection of cultural gathering and activity to really bring the city alive. By osmosis, visitors get the strategy of Luminato, but Luminato really is there to make sure that people of Toronto and the wider GTA and all of Ontario and in fact Canada, when they come into this fine city, that we can sort of transform their imaginations on what culture can be. Having lived here now as a proper Torontonian for over 12 months, I fully understand what it means to like get out there in summer, like that spring bloom into this sort of euphoric feeling of being out and about in your streets.
Welcome back to Table 6. We're joined today by Olivia Ansell, Artistic Director of the Luminato Festival, to explore how public art and festivals don't just entertain. They shape identity, spark dialogue, and build a deeper sense of connection across the city.
And as Luminato celebrates nearly 20 years of transforming Toronto's public spaces, we'll reflect on how far the city has come and where it's going next.
Art gives you connection together that it's hard to get from any other activity, and I think that's something to hold on to. It's the connection with other audience members or with the artists, that connection between the performer and the audience member. There's an artist in me that's just waiting to burst into a song or a movement, you know. So being relevant, contemporary in approach, and leading with equity and innovation and ingenuity, that's what I hope for this festival's future.
Hi everyone, I'm Tiana Jayatunga.
And I'm Dana Duncanson, and we're here with Olivia from Luminato. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Really happy to have you here.
Jumping straight in, Olivia, this festival is something I feel like everyone looks forward to every summer. And it's a big deal. Toronto has a lot of like summer festivals that come, but this one is like one of those ones that for art lovers, they look forward to. How do you feel this festival lets people experience the city?
I think what I'm passionate about with international arts festivals like Luminato, and this is my second major festival that I've been the artistic director of, the reason I love doing this is I believe in what an arts festival can do for its city. So I think that arts festivals have this unique opportunity to transform the identity of a city temporarily, in this case, like every summer. And it's that delight and surprise. And having lived here now as a proper Torontonian for over 12 months, I fully understand what it means to like get out there in summer, like that spring bloom into this sort of euphoric feeling of being out and about in your streets.
Yeah.
And then, you know, in tandem to that, to see the city come alive through compelling contemporary public art that's here one minute, gone the next. It's a thrill, and it sort of injects this civic pride that you can't describe, but you wish you could bottle and bring it back every year. And that's kind of like what we intend to do, you know.
Yeah, you mentioned that you've been now in Toronto for 12 months. Coming from Australia and having that experience, what was that like in terms of being able to adapt to not only the city, but being able to understand how all of this fits in the context of Luminato?
There's a lot of similarities with international arts festivals around the world, but also the timing of when festivals take place. So like when I was approached for this role and I went through the interview process, it was the fact that Luminato was a summer festival, and I'd just been directing the Sydney Festival in summer. And I inherently knew what that meant for visitation to the city, for residents. You know, like Luminato grew out of the SARS pandemic. They realized that because of SARS, there was sort of a bit of an exodus. People were like locking down in their homes as you do during a pandemic, you know, not really the time to socialize. And so Luminato was like an injection of cultural gathering and activity to really bring the city alive and attract visitation. And that's exactly what Sydney's remit was. You know, in the summer of January, people head to the beach. What are we going to do in the CBD? What are we going to fill into our cultural icons like the Sydney Opera House? So I knew the role and the task at hand. I knew the motivation. The motivation in a summer festival is vastly different to winter or a festival that runs throughout like the school year, for example. They just have different angles to them. And it's marrying the euphoria of people in summer and how they feel about their city, and they do feel differently. Weather has a lot to do with it, and then how you marry the art to that moment. There's obviously more layers to that. We are a big international arts festival. We profile Canadian artists from afar. But the sensibility and the context and the environment around you is critical to what drives you to curate.
Right. It is like well, you said something about bringing tourism in, and that's a big part of it. But this is also something that the locals get to constantly
Yeah.
experience, like anew every single year. So how do you marry that together, where it's still a new experience for locals, but you're also balancing bringing in that tourism?
It's both. And like, of course, your biggest audience is your local audience.
Yeah.
And how can we reinvent ourselves and surprise you as Torontonians every single year? And, to an extent, we're sort of like guerrilla activators because we pop up in different places. Like last year, we launched an iceberg at Sankover Square, took it up on a crane 100 meters high and dangled these sort of CBD 9 to 5 workers over a block of melting ice as
Wow.
a comment around fast fashion, right?
Yeah.
The following year, we're going to do something entirely different with a vintage fire truck, still using a ladder and catapulting artists into the air, doing, unthinkable feats. But, no one year is the same. And our job is to impress, delight, surprise, and fill our residents with like imagination and wonder. And then I think for visitors, it's like people who have never been to Toronto, they suddenly rock up to this city and see this explosion of culture, color, like movement, incredible music, and tell their friends, we hope. So, by osmosis, visitors get the strategy of Luminato.
Yeah.
But Luminato really is there to make sure that people of Toronto and the wider GTA and all of Ontario and in fact Canada, when they come into this fine city, that we can sort of transform their imaginations on what culture can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I love that. I think that we are in a really diverse city and lots of different populations moving through this part of the downtown. So that's great. I want to ask about this year's theme, which is play, which is pretty layered. You've got child's play, equal play, power play. Tell us a bit more about the concept of play and how you brought all of this together for this year's festival.
I think the first moment for me around play, the genesis of that was about 2 years ago now. I went to a festival in Germany that's in a regional area with all these kind of industrial like heritage spaces from a darker time in Germany's history, right? Like we're talking about locomotive factories, coal mines, disused ammunition factories, like really dark period in Germany's history. And somehow this festival called the Rutriale formed all of these like heritage locations into cultural precincts to incite like unity and gathering, healing, reconciliation of artists coming together through storytelling. And it's an international festival. And during my time attending that festival, I was walking through one of these old factories, watching an incredible immersive experience to the music of Bjork. And over 4 different levels, it's hard to describe what I saw. It was some kind of mix between Chernobyl, the film, the extraordinary music of Bjork mixed in with arrangements by the wonderful Caroline Shaw, 13 artists over different levels, very sort of immersive, looking through the grates of one part of a coal mine and seeing artists in the distance with a flickering light.
Wow. Sounds like a dream.
It was a dream. And, you could become quite jaded when you see a lot of theatre. Like it takes a lot to surprise and delight yourself.
Yeah.
And I remember just being like, I felt like a kid in awe. Like my jaw was on the floor. I was gasping with excitement. And I felt this child's play. I felt this wonderment, like I've been moved and changed. And so, I came back to Toronto and I was thinking around other activity that was happening in Toronto, maybe of the sporting variety in 2026. And I was thinking of this notion of play. And it was like, child's play. We need more child's play in how we see art and experience art. And then I thought, well, what if the theme was power play? Sorry, what if the theme was play?
Yeah.
Right.
And we had all these sub themes. So
Yeah.
child's play, power play, the imbalance of power, like theater is steeped in conflict
Yeah.
because it mirrors lived experience. And, there's a work in this year's festival, 10 Days in a Madhouse. Nellie Bly, who was this investigative journalist in the early 1900s, she feigned her own insanity to seek the truth. So she played for justice,
Wow.
Equal play, you think about reconciliation, having a seat at the table, equity. What are those stories that must be told? And then child's play, as I described, like those moments that are transformative, that really take your imagination somewhere that you never thought it could go.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think the importance of child's play is in just everyday life? Because I find that now the world feels so heavy, and just the concept of play is like really enticing. And I think for a lot of people, they really want to be able to perhaps embrace that. So, what do you think the importance of that is?
Connection.
Mm.
Mm,
It's the connection with other audience members or with the artists,
right.
that connection between the performer and the audience member. And I think as we embrace the digital world and the AI world more and more, that human connection or tactile connection, it doesn't, like you could have that connection with a piece of art that you experience in a tactile way.
Yeah.
I once, most recently, did this immersive experience in New York, and there's no spooks in it. There's no scares. There's no jump starts. In fact, there were no actors in this experience. The only mediums that were used was headphones, the voice of Helena Bonham Carter in your ears, telling this narrative, and light and scenery. And you go in groups of 6, and I didn't know anyone in my group. And we had to traverse through this sort of maze-like structure. We were going through churches, houses, bedrooms, tunnels. And when the light would flicker at times, and eventually the light would go off. So you had a certain amount of seconds to get from one room to the next with these 5 strangers you've just met. By the end of the experience, we'd hugged each other, grabbed each other's ankles, been so like in a supportive way, like, where are you?
Yeah.
Opened doors for each other. No, you go first. No, you go. Nobody wanted to be at the end when the light went out.
Ah,
And we had this bonding, this human connection. We came out of the experience, went downstairs, talked about what we just went through together in the sort of like the bar, the gift shop downstairs, as you do when you come out of these experiences. We kind of bonded and made new friendships. And it kind of takes sometimes an experience like that to do the basic human connection
Yeah.
that we would have
Yeah.
done pre the digital age. And that warm and fuzzy feeling of bonding and doing something together, whether it's rock climbing, whether it's canyoning, whether it's going into an immersive experience or having a listening party, art gives you connection together that it's hard to get from any other activity. And I think that's something to hold on to.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting too, because it's like it's so different from the digital age that we live in. It's very tangible, right? Like
Yeah.
people are wanting these in-person connections, and I think that's what the festival also does so beautifully. It's like you're not just observing, you're actually participating in it, and it's a lot of it is very interactive too. So
Yeah.
you get to see those connections coming together and people experiencing and making new memories with each other. When we're talking a bit about play as a concept, you were also saying that something that really spoke to you was in Germany when you got to see that contradicting kind of aspect of play, where it's like a very hard topic, but then this very light way of kind of displaying that. Maybe we can talk a bit about how do you see play helping disarm people in difficult conversations, and what's the connection there?
No, that's a great question. I had a fantastic discussion this morning with Liz Akiriko and Tyler Mitchell, who are featuring in the Wedge Lecture. And this event is part of Black Excellence. We're very pleased. We'll be on our 3rd year of the Wedge Lecture in 2026. And we're very pleased to be working with Kenneth Montague and the team at TMU and many other tertiary institutions, like talking about design, architecture, visual art. And when we were talking about the theme this morning with Tyler, his eyes lit up around play and his practice. And, you think about photography and contemporary photography and whose work is missing at the table, and how through a contemporary lens we can play dynamically with conversations that would be far harder to have just in a dialogue, but through photography, we can really point with beauty, with empathy, with purpose,
Yeah.
and with challenging rigor. The equity's still missing around the table through photography, and so I'm excited for that in conversation event. Another example of play is Azam Muhammad, who is a Sudanese Australian hip hop artist. He's created a work called Katma in collaboration with his dancers. And Katma means to suffocate. It means I can't breathe.
Yeah.
Azam talks about putting this energy and connection on the dance floor of like-minded souls and communities who feel like they've lived in an oppressed society and haven't been raised in kind of an equitable circumstance. And whilst like this work really includes everybody in the room, but it really puts forward, street dance artists, hip hop artists, crump, like rappers, everybody that wants to come together and talk about like shared adversity and challenges, particularly like racial challenges, and how we can come together through healing and hope, put that energy onto the dance floor and really shine a light on the different street dance languages that are inherent to those cultures. So we're super pumped about Katma coming to Toronto, and it's one of those shows that runs 90 minutes. You basically walk into a club-like structure, and whilst there's 8 dancers sort of leading on the movement, you find yourself just naturally drawn in. And it's not like you sort of think, oh, I'm not sure how good a dancer I am. I'm not sure if I can just put myself out there on the floor. But you watch like the way in which they organically just so gently bring you in, and you really lose your inhibitions in the space.
Yeah.
And I think there's a real powerful form of play directed by them in that moment.
Yeah, that's really, really fascinating. I'm even thinking about, as you were talking, like I recently had a pretty serious conversation, and I had to have one. And I think the one thing that I did going into it was I kind of took more of a joyful, playful approach to it, where me and this person ended up having like a conversation about something that had nothing to do with it, to be able to enter into what was a more serious conversation, but it actually just sort of softened the conversation. So as you're sort of expressing this, I'm even thinking about all the other ways in which sometimes you have to sort of shake the heavy by actually like not just in conversation mode, but actually through art and experiencing things that helps with, and going back to your point of connection, it helps with like fostering a better connection, so that when those conversations come up, that they're easier to tackle. And I think that's important, not only just on a one-on-one level, but if you think about all the different layers of heaviness in the world right now, that it is important for us as a society to really like lean into that theme.
I think it's actually very on theme with what's happening today, in today's day. Like Gen Z is a very unserious generation. And Dana and I were having this conversation earlier about just the way Gen Z tackles like workplaces and everything. It's very playful and very not serious. Like I think that like the way everyone else did it, if you even look 10 years ago, it's like there was a format and a way to approach difficult conversations. Whereas now it's just like, just have it's all about that real raw, and like even on socials, all like not hyper edited, just very natural. Yeah.
Authenticity.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I'm curious for you, like, for you specifically, like what are usually the ways in which you really embody the word play in your own personal life?
I really resonate with what you said, Tiana, about like having fun and laughter in the workplace. I've always viewed the workplace as a location and a destination for play. Like if things get too bureaucratic, and I start seeing like, too much analytics or lists or things like this, I have to force myself to like come back. I've got to force myself to take it seriously, because my natural demeanor is to be creative and to play. And being an artist, there's an artist in me that's just waiting to burst into a song or a movement, And so I have to really pull my creative brain back in and go, no, focus on this. Like, I think so. I'm definitely the dreamer. I have a natural disposition to daydream, like terribly. And so, I've always had that as a kid. And I think the disposition to daydream is kind of what makes me think creatively. Like it's a strength and a weakness. But yeah, I mean, I often think of ideas for the festival in those moments of transition. Really basic moments of transition, like commuting to work, in a queue to get on a bus, sitting on a flight. It's moments like that, just those quiet moments to yourself. It could be in the shower. And I daydream so much that these creative moments or ideas come to me, or it's when I'm hearing a piece of music, or watching a film or reading a fantastic book. The mind goes elsewhere. So I live in that space. I could probably learn to live more in an analytical space, but there you are.
I think that's great. I have my best ideas in the shower. I will say. I think it's so nice to have those spaces of just quiet, because I think nowadays everything moves so quickly. It's like you're
Yes.
always like I doom scroll a lot, and sometimes you just have to like put it aside and just have those slow moments in your life, whether it be like reading or just like carving out time to garden, which I've been trying to get Dana on.
Maybe eventually, yeah.
But yeah, it's just then you can actually have the space to come up with creative ideas and work. I think now after the pandemic, like things have shifted a lot where that in-person work and kind of always being there is not as mandatory as it used to be. And we've seen such a huge shift from that.
Yeah.
But I think it's been a good thing for people too, because it's like you maybe that's allowed people not to take life so seriously. It's like when you saw the news anchors having kids coming in the middle of the show, because that's just the reality of working from home.
Well, yeah, I think that is kind of maybe perhaps one of the silver linings of what we experienced back in the pandemic. I'm not going to say the C word, is that like it did allow us to sort of like move from being this very structured society to finding more flexible ways. And I love how, I mean, you're probably in the most perfect job for you because you get to actually like embrace that and use that to your advantage. But I do think that there is this balance and tension that has to exist between play and structure. So, you know, being a millennial, and to Tiana's point about Gen Z and being the product of boomer parents, I do find that like there is this sort of back and forth, and it's a kind of interesting time that we're in as we progress to being more, you know, to what the future generations are going, how they're going to be functioning.
Totally. I mean, I think of like young children who will never exist in this lifetime without knowing what a pre-AI life
Yes.
will be like.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of baffles me completely. And what does play look like to them? You
That's
know,
right.
and so it's it's kind of mind blowing when you think about it that way. But then like just recently with the Artemis landing with the splashdown,
Yeah.
there was something analog about that, even though it takes a
Yes.
huge amount of like digital rigor to get them into space.
Yeah.
But knowing that the last splashdown of that type was in the 70s and there were so many similarities to the space age of back then, I had this kind of quiet obsession last week just watching that whole process take place. And there's like at the end of the day, somebody had to spend 10 days
Yeah.
in like without gravity in that confined space. And there's a rigor to that no robot can do for you. You know, I mean, they do it, but what those humans did, you know, is quite remarkable. So I live in hope there's still that human condition, human connection.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the themes is also equal play and making sure that equity is there. So how do you make sure equity is part of that programming?
Immediately, I think of a physical theatre piece titled The Air Between Us, which is performed by New Zealand choreographer and dancer Chloe Loftus and Florent Devsevlier. Originally, this duet was conceived several years ago between Chloe and Rodney Bell, who is a Maori artist from New Zealand and a wheelchair user. And together, this acrobatic duet, and Florent is also a wheelchair user, I should say, but together this acrobatic duet is around counterbalance. It is the most beautiful physical theatre, like modern dance, balletic, like aerial duet in the air for 25 minutes. They're strung, you know, like 20, 30 meters high, and the audience are all underneath them to a beautiful sound score. And to see these two artists counterbalance and perform everything in this beautiful symmetry, duality with equity.
Yeah.
And to see that kind of work on our stages is so important for Luminato. And that's just one example of many. So equity through who we curate,
Yes.
equity in the audiences that we attract. Access is deeply important to us.
Yeah.
And we provide a full range of access services throughout all that we present. And also access in an economic sense. One of the pieces we're really proud of this year is Ode to Joy. It's a sing-along with the symphony. We're beaming Beethoven's Ninth Movement, arguably the best composition he ever wrote, especially because of the fourth movement with Ode to Joy. We're beaming it to Sankofa Square from Roy Thompson Hall. So
Wow.
this sold-out, packed concert at the Roy Thompson with Gustavo conducting and the full glory of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, Toronto Mendelssohn Choir, being beamed free to anybody who wants to watch it down at Sankofa Square. And on the fourth movement, we're inviting choristers to come into the square
Oh, wow.
That
and
is
sing
fun.
in
Wow.
tandem with, hundreds of choristers from Mendelssohn and other community choirs and sing Ode to Joy, the fourth movement, which runs 17 minutes. So to
that's
bring
great.
equity to the streets, like equity to who can access the symphony and who can enjoy and participate in classical music.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I love that. I just love the engagement and the connectivity that would happen through that experience. And I'm curious to know, like, what responsibility do you think cultural institutions have in shaping more inclusive narratives in Toronto?
The responsibility is leadership and making sure we lead through all the platforms that we offer. So access services, whether that's, a tactile tour, pre or post show, Auslan interpretation, audio description, sensory areas or sensory zones attached to any given performance, making sure that who we present on our stages marries to who we're attracting in our audiences, that the way in which we procure an audience is steeped in equity. It's really important that arts festivals set the pace and set the measure this way. And we're really pleased at Luminato that our mandate is for all events at the festival to be 100% accessible.
Great.
So,
Fantastic.
I think if international arts festivals like us aren't doing that, then there's a problem. So we're really thrilled to be leading the charge there.
Yeah. And I think you're also leading the charge by kind of bringing back some of the favorite things of the festival with the 20 and Extraordinary project that you guys are doing. Could you talk a bit about that to our viewers so they understand the significance of this?
The beauty of a theme like play is it just keeps on giving as a
Yes,
word. So
very much
for
so.
those moments, we've called them replay. And I will just give a shout out to the Red Bull that's having a replay around the
Love the
city,
Red
Kurt
Bull.
Perschke. But 20 and Extraordinary, there are so many events in Luminato's 20-year history when we look back at them. But for me, I was really drawn to those events that transform the identity of the city. As we said, like when we were talking earlier, where people walk past, if they're at Spadina or they've walked past, Blue Jays Way or what have you, and they see these kind of absurd, out-of-the-box, temporary public art installations. How can we draw out some of those most memorable moments over 20 years? So 20 and Extraordinary plucks out 20 images that we feel really defined the city during 20 summers of Luminato Festival.
Yeah.
And you'll see these images across the TTC network. So walking through various subway stations, you'll see it on photo rolls, digital screens around the city, and we'll certainly be putting them on our website. 20 and Extraordinary will take you through everything from Walk with a Mile by the Walk and Handspring Puppet Company, which was this young refugee walking the streets of Toronto, create like a metaphor for new life and raising awareness for communities who have been displaced. The Encampment from 2012, Jenny McEwen and Tom Solokulski, this incredible gathering of people, like storytelling on our 200-year-old history of civil war. Ed Batinsky in the Wake of Progress down at Sankofa Square, a huge montage of all of his epic body of work where people stopped in the streets listening to Bob Ezrin's score with this square, like really transformative moments. And in Thor, the iceberg from last year, the Hearn, people can't think of Luminato without saying the word the Hearn and the generating station. So there are these images of civic life transformed temporarily right across throughout the GTA of what we've done here in this city. And we encourage everyone to get down and check them out over the month of June.
Yeah, I love that. That also brings back a feeling of nostalgia for those of us who have experienced the Red Ball and some of these other cool activations. I'm curious to know, with this particular 20 and Extraordinary project, and it also being a nostalgic moment, what do you think nostalgia does for engagement?
Ooh, it does a lot. Both nostalgia does so much, both in a positive and a negative way.
Yeah.
And I was only just having a chat with someone the other day, and we were like, really disappointed the particular music festival had folded. And I said, but we all wax lyrical about how we went in our 20s and how good it was. And we're like, why don't they bring it back? And I said, the truth is, it never went away. We just stopped going because we got older, So nostalgia can do that, right?
Yeah.
And also nostalgia can evoke that civic pride and that memory. And I remember when. And if I had $1, I would have a very big piggy bank if I had $1 for every time somebody comes up to me and says, you know what, when I was 12, my parents took me to Iceland on the beach. This opera changed my life. Or when I was 15, I saw Akram Khan doing this incredible piece with kuchipudi dancers and and Kathak choreography combined. Like that just blew my mind. That made me want to get into theater and dance. This happens all the time where one festival experience can inspire someone on their career direction and how they want to spend their time. And that nostalgia is palpable and it has huge power. Another one on the negative, but also a positive, Pearl Harbor Walks into a Bar is a show that we've got in this year's festival. And the wonderful Justin Miller, his practice is steeped in toxic nostalgia, how we often only remember the good bits of our past and celebrate them, like the Roaring 20s, how many kind of flapper parties are out there, everyone having a great time, Great Gatsby. But the 20s was a very dark time as well, And he's going to remind us of those moments with his very satirical, darkly funny cabaret at the Royal York Hotel. So if you want to hear more about nostalgia, Justin's got the scoop.
Are you a nostalgic person?
I am. Yeah. I do think of those moments, those, I think back to those moments that I felt transformed my life. But I now have a sharp lens on, I'm also like level-headed. I'm like, you know what? That was awesome, but you haven't gone in 15 years. So get with what's happening tomorrow.
Is it scary bringing back those nostalgic things? Because I feel like the other side of it is like people feeling like they remembered it better than it was. So it's like you have to kind of balance that.
Yeah, the pressure is harder and higher. Like, I will say though, coming from Sydney, Grace Jones was part of one of the Sydney Festival lineups back in the day. And, curating that festival for 5 years, another piggy bank moment. Yeah. If I had $1 for every, bring back Grace Jones, bring back Grace Jones, and also like A, she needed to be available, but B, like you're also trying to like invite new artists as well, right?
Yeah.
Just recently, like in the last 6 months, Grace Jones played the Sydney Opera House forecourt, and I've been looking back at pictures.
Yeah.
The concert was knockout phenomenal, and I think of like what she would have gone through too, like she's got everybody there waxing in the nostalgia of her being there like 15, 20 years ago. And she's coming back for her return concert. So stakes are high. And she well and truly blew it out of the park, right? It was phenomenal. The concert, the concert, the images, the reviews. It was one of those bucket list moments again. So I do think that artists can reinvent themselves over and over again and take nostalgia head on,
It is something that is happening more and more in pop culture, I feel like. I mean, the example like recently would be like Hilary Duff like coming back and doing her whole it's like bringing back for all the Lizzie McGuire fans. There was like a Hannah Montana,
Miley Cyrus.
Miley Cyrus coming back for the 20th anniversary. So it's just like even like the remake of so many popular Disney films and everything. It's just like people I think also love living in that nostalgia. It's just there's a balance that you have to have where it's like you kind of have to make it a little bit better than they remember. Like keep that heart behind it, but still like elevate it to an extent where it's like, what are you adding to the table as well?
I think that's what creates that also creates a moment of connection across generations, right? Because you're seeing more parents who are showing their kids the experience that they had. But there is something about nostalgia where it is a bit shinier and brighter and more the memories of it is like, it's like, thinking about your ex and then you bring that moment back and you're like, oh yeah, these are all the reasons why we're not together anymore, right? So
I have a great show for you on that topic matter.
Tell me about it.
We've got a work called Heartbreak Hotel in the 26th Festival, and it's exactly about that. It's about breakups.
I've got to
and
see
the breakup songs of our youth, right?
Yeah.
Like what were the tapes you played or the records you played during those breakup moments where you thought you just lost the one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and that is steeped in nostalgia.
Tell me a bit about the Red Ball project and bringing that back. Why is it important to bring back projects like that?
With the case of Red Ball, we were talking to Kurt Perschke, who's the maker and creator, who, like in the early 2000s, he first started to present the Red Ball in guerrilla locations in Barcelona. Nobody invited him. He would just go there in the middle of the night, like pump this thing up and wedge it between two buildings or under a bridge, like really off the wall. And this is, before social media, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was all word of mouth and I don't know, like MySpace, that kind of territory. But by 2008, he was starting to get real invitations to different places. But Luminato Festival was the first bona fide international arts festival that made an invitation to Kurt to bring the Red Ball.
Yeah.
And he credits us here in Toronto with really igniting his career with this work. Like it was then that the invitation started flowing from many festivals globally, right throughout China. Like if you have a look at his Instagram, it's incredible how far that artwork has traveled, from the Middle East, like iconic location, like the Great Wall, like it's been absolutely everywhere. And we were toying with the idea of asking him to come back because he'd mentioned so many times, I can't thank you enough. Like Toronto did something to this project that no other city could do.
Wow.
And that really tapped into how this festival transforms a city's identity.
Yeah.
And so we felt like, we were up for a replay.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And I think a lot of people, again, are recalling those moments as well. And I love always seeing images of it. So it's really great too. I wasn't here for it, but certainly I remember it making media and seeing it. So I'm excited for this year to be able to actually experience it for myself.
And finally, looking ahead for the next, looking at 20 years and maybe 20 years from now even, what does success look like for Luminato beyond just general attendance?
Success, I think, looks like a city cannot live without its international arts festival, and an international arts festival can't live without its city. So long as we keep needing each other, audience needing artists and artists needing audiences, then I think it's a bold future ahead.
Yeah.
So being relevant, contemporary in approach, and leading with equity and innovation and ingenuity, that's what I hope for this festival's future.
I love that. For anyone who is wanting to know more about some of the exciting projects and elements to this year's festival, where can they find more information on a website or at social?
LuminatoFestival.com.
Great. And on socials?
At Luminato Festival across all of our handles.
Perfect.
And check us out. There's a lot of content rolling around right now, and we can't wait to see you in June.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for just joining us and talking about the festival. For everyone watching, Luminato Festival is happening on June 3rd, and there's going to be installations across the city. It's a major event for Toronto, so make sure you get yourself there. And again, thank you, Olivia,
Thank you,
for
Olivia,
joining.
so much.
Yeah.
This
Thanks
was
so much
great.
for having me.